Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate the intro, and thank you, Jane and Paul, for reaching out to me to give this talk today. Jane just randomly emailed me one day and was saying, hey, we're doing this awesome talk series, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to do it, and I'm just honored, truly, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to start. I have a slideshow because I'm a very visual person and I like to kind of talk with pictures. So I will start sharing. So here's the intro screen. So as Paul said, I will be just discussing my journey as a gallery curator and how I network with artists. I'm hoping I can provide some experiences and insight to how I kind of run the position and how I work with artists, so people can understand how I create captivating exhibitions, or if they're interested in becoming a gallery curator themselves, they can pursue this career. So to start, I'm going to kind of start with the beginning of my career. It's really kind of describes how I got started. And to also add, feel free to stop me at any time for questions. I really like engaging conversation, so if you have a comment or a question, feel free to stop me at any time. All right, so to start, I accepted a position, well, I enrolled at BGSU in 2011, and I discovered that 3D studies was the way I wanted to go. So as you can see here, here's a bunch of pictures of me metal casting. That was my first passion, was learning how to create artwork from melting metal, how to run the process, and these are some really great pictures from the studio at BGSU. And along that process, I also decided to kind of pursue arts management as a minor. I fell in love with art organizations and nonprofits, so I really wanted to kind of learn the business side of art as kind of a backup career. All right, so next slide. So here's some actually pictures of my artwork. Loved creating large-scale things, automotive themed. I like working with pantyhose as well, which is kind of a strange material. But it just had a really interesting texture that was formed, and I love what happened when I painted it and stretched it over metal. So that's what I kind of, a taste of my early artwork. And it's so interesting. So I was pursuing a Bachelor of Arts degree. And I realized halfway through the process that I didn't get a Bachelor of Fine Arts exhibition chance. It was because if you're earning a BFA, your capstone was being in this final exhibit and showing all your work that you've created. And I was so upset. Being the angsty young college student that I was, I blamed the college, I blamed the School of Art, even though it was my choice to go in Bachelor of Arts and not Bachelor of Fine Arts. So I was just so angry, and I was talking to my sculpture faculty member at the time about it, and he said, well, why don't you just create your own exhibit? If you're upset by it, why don't you go out and do your own thing and, make it your own capstone project? And I was like, oh, wow, that's a really good idea. So that is what I did. So Paradigm Shift was my very first exhibit. So it was really hard. I wrote a grant, and the hardest part was finding a space, because in Little Bowling Green, Ohio, there's not a whole lot of spaces that are open for exhibiting. So I truly lucked out. I knew it was fate, because Erwin Rettel has a studio in Bowling Green, and I reached out to him if he had any extra space, and he said, oh yeah, sure, go right ahead. And for context, Erwin Rettel is the artist who designed the lights on the Anthony Wayne Bridge in Toledo. So he is international artist, very, very prestigious. So I was very lucky at the time to stumble upon his studio, and he let me have it for free, which was really crazy. So I was able to put my grant money towards other materials for the exhibit. But he let me paint everything, install the wall and different sculptures and the lighting. So I was just very lucky to have that. But as you can see, I'm not very good at graphic design. That was the first poster on the left here that I created for the exhibit. All right, in this exhibit, my fellow students helped me. I chose them to display their artwork. They were my fellow sculpture students. And they said, hey, can I help out? I'm like, sure, this would be a great learning experience for all of us. You know, painting, how to paint pedestals correctly, how to hang artwork correctly. And this really inspired me, having my students help me. And the opening night was really surprising. We had over 70 people in attendance. And it was open by appointment after that. So around over 100 people got to see this small little exhibit with only like 10, 15 pieces of artwork. But it was inspiring. And from there, I decided, I'm like, well, I have some grant money left over, so I'm going to do another one. And so I did. This one was Polychromatic. It was a pop-up styled exhibit. That was when it was starting to get really popular at the time. That term, that buzzword. And this was so interesting because it was a call for artists. I went around the school and just put a call up for artists poster, and I had over 100 submissions of artwork from my fellow students in the art school at BGSU. And it was a cool space. I talked to AA Green Realty, which is a local realty business in Bowling Green, and they let me rent this space for like $200 or something crazy like that. And it was an old spa kind of space. It was, I think, a spa and a tanning saloon of some sort. So there's like all these rooms, and it was all these different colors. So since I didn't have any artwork and didn't know what I was getting, I was like, oh, I'll call it chromatic because it's just a strange space to begin with all these colors. All right, just following along with my notes. And again, this was another successful exhibit, I would say. We had 2 art pieces sell. That was the first artwork I ever sold. And we had over 100 people in attendance on opening night. But just, it was so great because I had that realization moment that's like, wow, student artists, that is such a great way to connect and put on an art show. And now, as I have listed here, the student artists, they have new artwork concepts. They're new to the art scene, so a lot of the time the public's never seen what they're working on before, so it's really engaging, and the public wants to come out and see what they're doing. And usually they have a variety of artwork because they have to create. When you're in college, you just have to create, make, and have a really big portfolio if you decide to pursue a master's or even a doctorate in some situations. It was kind of a requirement. Sometimes it can be a requirement, I should say. At BGSU, actually, after I made this exhibit, they actually made it a requirement for art students to pursue an exhibit space and present their artwork as part of like a kind of a capstone project, which was really crazy at the time because I was just doing it because I wanted to make my own art exhibit out of anger at the School of Art, which it turned into something way more than that and way more of a community. I'm not angry at them anymore. All right. So, and especially after this, it really made me realize that I was passionate about curating art and working with artists. Right before I graduated, I interned at the BGSU galleries, learned a little bit of skill from that. And at the Arts Commission as well, I interned as the student program. Gosh, I can't remember the name, but they have a huge student program that they employ student artists, and they employ them over the summer and create artwork. And of course, unfortunately, after I graduated, I could not find a gallery curator or gallery director position. It was just the market at the time, and me being a fresh student out of college, it's not always the first person you go to. They usually look for someone with a lot of experience. So in the meantime, I commissioned artwork and sculpture. So you can see there's a picture of me welding. The centerpiece is a red car sculpture that was commissioned. It's called Firebird. And then me on the right there is installing a piece in someone's house as well. It was in their basement, and they wanted a bunch of kind of shapes of an automotive piece, like a kind of like automotive work or like a car body, and just put together in a sculptural piece. The hardest part was I was creating artwork that I wasn't passionate about. It was very specific. At the time, people wanted, oh, I want this color, I want this shape in my house. I'm like, okay, well, you know, that's not what I really want to do, but you need to make money somehow. So I ended up doing that for a little bit. But I kept pursuing a job as a gallery curator director. Did not give up on that. And I landed a position at American Frame. It was a showroom attendant position originally. So customers would come in and I would measure the artwork and help them frame and pick out mats and different colors for their artwork. But they also, at the time, had a new gallery showroom they were just starting. So they were looking for someone with some background in exhibiting experience. So I was like, gosh, I'll take it. Like, I will involve myself as much as I can in this, in the gallery position as well, so I can just hone my skills and just keep going towards my goal and my passion. And so the American Frame shop was a custom frame shop in Maumee, Ohio, and the showroom gallery, so there's two exhibiting spaces. One was in a conference room with what you'll see at the top right of the screen, and the bottom was the actual showroom space where they exhibited other artwork. Sue Stewart is the local artist on display in the top picture of me hanging her pieces, and on the bottom is the Ohio Watercolor Society. It was the kind of national championships that they were hosting. And this, working at American Frame, was where I created the bulk of my artist contacts. And it was local artists. A lot of the time, artists, to exhibit in a gallery space, your artwork needs to be framed or it needs to be finished somehow. So that's who I met. Everybody, every day was an artist coming in a lot of the time. And since American Frame was wholesale, it was a little more affordable frame. So that's why we had more of an artist clientele than someone who bought artwork from an artist and was framing it for their home. But local artists, they're so easy to contact. Whenever someone walked in and I liked their artwork, I'd ask for their business card and write down their contact information and reach out to them and say, hey, I love your work. Would you like to have an exhibit at American Frame? And we would schedule it out. And they're always looking for exhibits. Being a local artist, it's good to get your name out there and keep networking yourself. So always having your artwork on display and selling it in the sense of, oh, I'm on display in this place, you should go check it out, is really beneficial for them. And they usually have a following in the area already from art fairs or just traveling around in different exhibits. And for me, they're near and dear to my heart. They're very important to support because they affect the local economy, our local art culture, and we need to continue to support local artists so they can be successful. And on display here, we have Aaron Bivens. He's on the vertical piece, and he's actually, I think he's at Levis Commons in this picture, and he's a really wonderful painter. And at the top is Leah Williams. She used to work at the Toledo School for the Arts, and I made a really great connection with her there, and this was kind of one of her premier exhibits. And at the bottom is EVAC. That was the Experiencing Veterans and Artist Collaboration Project. So essentially, this is a really great exhibit. We have a local organization that works with veterans and the artists create artwork based on their war stories that they tell, so we can try to preserve and educate children and people in the community of their experiences. All right, so national and international artists. One of the first things I put is they're a little more difficult, pardon me, oh, dry throat. All right, I'm gonna take a sip of water. I'm talking too much. Sorry about that. All right, so national and international artists. As I put, they're a little more difficult, but not impossible to contact. The difficulties that come along with national and international artists is travel, and shipping is the biggest cost out of this connection. So I have worked with a few. So I put the picture of me on the left here. This was the Bearded Lady project. So this was a national exhibit, traveled. I think it has traveled internationally at this point, but it was woman archaeologists or paleontologists, anyone in the geological field, and they wore beards to kind of showcase that, give this kind of historic look of like, oh, you know, white men with beards are what you usually see in this field, and it's not true. It's you know, nowadays it's a lot of women, and they're hardworking, and it shows the appreciation of what these women do. So the whole thing was to wear a beard, so they got me a beard for that picture. But that was a wonderful connection through American Frame as well. They needed frames for their exhibit. They wanted it a bulk size. They had at least like 50 pictures in this exhibit, and they were very large. And I made a connection with them. I was like, hey, like, this is going all over the place. Can you come to American Frame? That would be wonderful. And that's how I made a lot of national and international artist connections. American Frame has an online website, so they sell literally all across the globe. And just, I would reach out to different people when they would call for an order or submit an order online and say, hey, like, would you want to be a part of our showroom exhibit? It's out in Little Mommy, Ohio, but we would love to work with you. So it's definitely not impossible, but it is a little more difficult. It's just a great way to bring new artwork to the community as well. So that's a great way to bring new culture, new ideas, and just share it with your local community. And one thing I have found is connecting through social media is a main method I go through now. Is I'll see artwork on Instagram or Facebook, and if I like it, I'll reach out to them and see if they'd be interested in partnering or connecting and making an exhibit. The bottom picture here is Tim Gonyer. He was actually an artist from the state of Maine, and he came all the way out, and he did actually an art demonstration. So he actually made a painting and everything, but we had his artwork on display, and working with him and shipping and making sure his artwork wasn't damaged was a little stressful, but it was definitely worth it. All of his art came in one piece, and if there's any damaged frames, we ended up fixing it for him. So that is another great avenue of connecting with artists. And then after American Frame, I had been there about 4 years, and making artist connections, and I felt I wanted to grow a little more. The showroom gallery it was just that. It wasn't a full-fledged gallery. I was still working in the retail scene and selling frames to artists, and I really wanted to follow my passion of working at a nonprofit organization that was part of the art world and part of art culture, and just to work in a gallery setting was just what I always wanted to do. So I looked around on Owens, and I found a gallery curator position was posted, and I decided to pursue it, and I just absolutely love the gallery space. It is so unique, and especially how the walls move is just, you don't see it. You don't see it around here in this area. So I was lucky enough to be accepted and hired for the position, and I've been loving it ever since. It's truly been such a blast, and I love waking up every day and getting to do what I love and what I'm passionate about. So here's some pictures of some exhibits that have been going on. There's the front of the gallery. So that was we're back when we had to close down due to COVID. I've made some social media posts that we're here, we're back, come join us. And the top right is of the launch exhibit. And below is actually an exhibit that we had in the library. Jane Berger was really awesome to work with, and we were so lucky to be able to bring the art down there and to bring some different art to the students as well. All right. And to kind of wrap things up, I am still creating artwork. I'm still very passionate about welding and making my own art, and I'm racing on the weekends as well. The autocross community that I'm a part of is actually a huge inspiration for my artwork too. So out on the right, we race at the Toledo Express Airport. And it's not like full-fledged racing. We have cones set up, and it's like an agility course. So you just go really, really fast around the cones as fast as you can. And that's my daily driver, too. So it's not too much wear and tear on the car. But just also expressing that I love having art in my daily life as well, and kind of bringing it through on side projects. All right. And to kind of summarize what I was talking about with the networking of artists, student artists, I can't stress enough, if anyone is interested in being a gallery curator, working in a gallery, go to undergraduate exhibits, BFA exhibits, MFA exhibits, student art shows, because those are up-and-coming artists. They, a lot of the time are required to have an exhibit, to be involved and get out in the community. And it's so wonderful supporting a student and just showing them like their artwork in a professional space and how important it is that their artwork is on display. So local artists, I suggest work at a local art organization. American Frame was a huge breakthrough for me to connect with all the artists that I know now. I know any like an art supply store or a museum, all great ways to connect, and always collect business cards, website info, anything you can if you like an artist or think they would be inspiring for an exhibit. And the local arts commission. Being an intern there, I made a lot of connections, and I always go back to them for different ideas or questions, or if I need to contact an artist that I don't have their info for. Again, with national and international artists, it's challenging, but it's not impossible. I know I'm still working on my list of national and international artists, but it's always great to pursue. Always reach out. A lot of the time, the biggest hurdle is money. So if there's a way that you can write a grant or find additional funding, you can make it happen. Local museums is a great way to find international and national artists as well. And like I said, social media. I can't tell you enough how many times I've been on Instagram and I'm like, oh, I love your artwork. Where are you from? Like, where is this like possibility? And they get excited because I'm a gallery curator, and they're like, yeah, this would be a great connection, not next year, but in the future. All right. And from there, I will open it up for questions. So I don't know if I should stop sharing. So, oh, thank you, Doug. So that's a great question. Thanks, Jen. So currently at Owens, we are planning to curate 5 to 7 exhibits a year. That way, we have it spread out a little bit more. It's nice to have exhibits on for a longer period of time because you'll have people that, life happens, so they're not able to come see an exhibit in a short amount of time. So we try to do 2 months to 2.5 months of art on display. When I was at American Frame, we did 24 exhibits a year. So we had 2 spaces. We had a conference room and a showroom gallery, and they wanted an exhibit every month. And I definitely learned from that. That was a lot of work, and a lot of the time people missed it. They would come in the next month and they're like, oh, what happened to this person? I'm like, I'm sorry, we're on to a new exhibit. We're on a monthly basis, and it's just nice to have a longer experience with the artwork if you can. All right. So Denise, what is your favorite part of managing our Owens Gallery? Oh, that's a wonderful question. Truly, it's, just working with the students. I've always liked working with students in different organization settings. Kind of a throwback, I worked at the BG Fab Lab for a little bit. That was kind of like a maker space that was starting in Bowling Green, and I taught a welding class. And it really hit me that I was like, wow, it's great to teach students, people who are interested in what I'm interested in. And that is just such a really great part of the Owens Gallery is always there's students around. If I have student workers, I can teach them. teach them about what I do. I love that aspect of it. And the space is really awesome. It's just really great to work with. It's so interesting. And just to have a dedicated gallery space is just, for me, I never realized how nice it is just to have a space that you can put an exhibit in and not have, like tables for like a frame shop or something like that. Thank you for coming, Jen. I appreciate it. Oh, Doug said, did you say you like to work with pantyhose? Yes. Oh, goodness. So back when I was in college, I'd call it nylon because pantyhose are just a little strange. But it was. I couldn't get sheets of nylon, so I would go and buy women's pantyhose in the stores. And I would cut them up, and I would stretch them over metal structures that I had welded together, and I'd sew them together. And the reason that inspired me so much is I loved the combination of what welds looked like compared to sewing. And I liked that conversation as well, that, oh, well, this is a very masculine thing, but this is a very feminine thing, but they're very similar. And that's such an interesting conversation to me. But yes, thank you for that question, Doug. Oh, Jane, she said, I wonder if she said that too, Doug. Do they still make pantyhose? Yeah, they do. I see them once in a while. I don't use them that much in my art anymore. Wonderful. And I think that is,
Shelby,
thank you, Jen.
Shelby, I had a question if you have a second.
Oh, of course.
We talked about this a little bit at the beginning, just the pandemic and how that has changed everything. What might you think the long-term impact would be on art galleries and the work of art curators, just in the aftermath, hopefully, of the pandemic and of COVID?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, Paul. So thankfully, from my experience at Owens, we've had so much support through this pandemic to keep going and to keep pursuing this wonderful educational experience for our students. So there's a lot of other art galleries that have not been so lucky. A lot of them have shut down. They don't exist anymore because they couldn't survive. But the few that exhibits and art galleries that I know, what they have done is they have gone online. There's an Artsy website, which is really helpful, that you can easily sell your artwork and have pictures, and you can sell internationally. So I think one effect is definitely we're going to be way more virtual. I know my outlook is every artist talk I provide at the Owens Gallery, I want to make it virtual. If not anything, for just to have the content for to post later, but to also reach to those people who we're like geographically bound. They can't drive 7 hours out to the gallery, so they can still experience a wonderful artist talk from across the country. It's just a great way to connect with people who can't physically come and see the exhibit. So I think that's definitely going to be something that we keep, is virtual artist talks, putting our exhibits online so we can reach to different audiences.
Very good. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Right. Oh, so Lisa has a really great question. Do you still do welding artwork? I do. I actually, we just me and my husband bought our first house recently, and it has a huge, like, three-car garage. So I'm excited to turn the third bay into my official welding studio again. I have my own welder and a bunch of welding equipment, and I cannot wait to get started back into that. So yes, I will never give that up. Oh, and Sharon has another question. Well, one of the shows you do before Owens instructors and staff? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sharon. Would you be able to say your question for me? Oh, I see. Thank you, Sharon. Yes, so we do have a faculty art show and a student art show that we exhibit. So Faculty Art Show usually takes place in the fall, and that is just a great way to display the talent of our faculty and how great they are. Staff, I'm trying to think. I believe we have opened it up to staff before. I've only been here for a year, so I'm still trying to grow that program, but I think that's a wonderful idea to include more staff, because it's true. We have some very talented and creative staff members here, so I think that's a great idea, and I'd love to pursue that. Awesome. Thank you for bearing with me with answering the questions in the chat.